rate of the light marching up the wall. Because on the west wall, if this is the west wall and this is the east wall, as the sun's coming over here, it's so far out there that it shines down through the 6-inch skylight, and it slowly marches but rapidly down the wall at about 20 after 12, and finally it kisses the floor. At the moment it kisses the floor, it starts coming up the east wall, and both walls are bathed totally in light for about 40 seconds each day as a daily event of solar noon. I failed to mention that down the Crystal Canyon there are 9 round skylights that you saw in a view a couple seconds ago. They have tracking louver racks on them, and they bring 5 to 10,000 foot candles to the bottom of the Crystal Canyon from dawn to dusk because their computer software makes the skylights acknowledge the sunrise and track to the sunset every day of the year. We have our third moment of light being the column capitals, because along with the task that we gave our engineer was the idea that we did not want to beam at a column. We wanted the gesture to be that a pool of light is what the column supports. And here you can see the magic of light in this room, the magic revealed, our columns and the tensegrity racing through the perforation in the wall into the saddlebag latticework of the structure. And we look at these pools of light up at the top of the canopy. And it was interesting because we have 7-foot pools of light at each column. The rotunda light, the edge condition here of light coming down. There you can see when the light's not marching the wall, it's right at the edge. And here you can see a translucent blue, which is not a lie, because these are filtered skylights. They are laminated glass technology with a PVB inner liner, and it's the color of glacial ice. Any of you that have the good fortune of seeing a glacier for real in Alaska or Switzerland or wherever know that ice at a glacier is blue. It's not National Geographic doing color tinting. And you have the quality playing with your mind that you know it's 200 degrees on this roof today, but the light that's filtered through the blue lens is really about being inside that glacier. So it's the coolest room, metaphorically and literally, to be in our city in summer. Now this little patch of light right here comes from the fact that there's a 3.5-inch clear oculus in the off-center of each of these skylights. And that's about a once-a-year event called the solstice. Summer solstice at high noon, the light comes through the angle, through this little oculus, and it hits the candle-like flame appurtenance here, which ties all the cables together at the top of the candle. And for about 40 seconds on the first day of summer each year, there's a solstice event in this room. Last year we had 1,500 people in the room, every TV station, every media outlet. The fire inspector had turned off the elevator and closed the stair. Will was fogged out of Cincinnati, arrived 50 minutes late. Wendell led a great journey for the crowd that was here. And we had 1,500 people coming not to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, not to see the latest Broken Arrow movie, but to see a simple science experiment that told them where they were standing in the universe. And again, even when it isn't solstice, the little dots invigorate and energize the space. You can see the curvature here. It's a space driven not only by our skill as engineers and architects, but by the hard realities of building codes and official rules. Building code says you cannot have unprotected steel structure within 25 foot of a ground plane. That determined the edge height at the edge. You take another rule that says you have to have 1 inch of fall for drainage on a roof for a public building in Phoenix. That drove the curve. We suddenly have this wonderful bow or crust movement of the roof. And Sophia McLean is sitting in the audience tonight, a young woman who recently graduated from art history school, was there with her mother last spring. And as I was describing how the roof was held up, she corrected me ever so rightly and said, no, the roof isn't held up, Will, it's tethered down. Because the illusion with the cables and the billowing of the roof really makes it look like these cables and these columns are holding it down rather than up. And I steal anything, so that's a phrase I always will use. Thank you, Sophia. A view through the shade sails, a view of the skyline of Phoenix. A view through that perforated skin, and in a shell game you can win a lot of money in Phoenix by betting people how much is the perforation. That is 10% void, 90% solid. That is what that skin is, I kid you not. trackers on the roof in a closed position after the sun goes down, the dust coming up on the right. More views of the building. One last image by our photographer Tim Hersley as he was driving to his red eye. He looked over his shoulder and he said, "My God, it's a movie set." There was a poor movie with great production quality a couple years ago called Stargate. We know all about this liquid morphing of the computer and these wonderful liquid mercury images of things like that, Terminator 4, whatever the hell it was, and Stargate, and there we have the Stargate in stainless steel on the east flank of our building. Architecture is really about light. Kahn was very true about that. And whether it be a great monument like the Pantheon or a modest adobe house in the desert by a young architect in the 70s, light gives power and magic to the spaces we create. Light is about the magic of materials, the combining of simple elements like concrete and glass, water, the landscape, and the sky. And it's always about Rocky and Janet, our clients. The parents of this building, my patrons, my friends, standing in the courtyard of a house in Monterey years later, and 25 years ago, this friendship started, and it will only end when we're no longer together on this planet. Remember the client. We work because of the client, not in spite of the client. Architecture is about rainbows, about dreams. It's about sunrise and never sunset because it's what we will do tomorrow. Everybody in this room tonight has the ability and the potential to create what you saw on the screen this evening. I challenge you. I hope for you. I'm optimistic with you. We're entering not only a new new century, but a new millennium. It's time for change. It's time to grow education. It's time to grow architecture. It's time to stop making excuses. Let's all race together into the new century and make many, many buildings for the ages. Thank you all very much.